Swadika, good morning and welcome to Newsline. It's Thursday, July 14th, 2014. I'm Hani Cholapansanarula. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to today's segment of Thailand Moves Forward, broadcasting live on NBT. And we also welcome our audience listening from Radio Thailand, FM 88. Now let's have a look at today's headlines. The National Council for Peace and Order has established a committee comprising 77 officials for the selection of National Reform Council or NRC members. An announcement was issued by the NCPO yesterday designating a total of 77 individuals as members of the NRC Selection Committee. The selection panelists are divided into 11 groups in accordance with their areas of concentration, including political affairs, local administration, education, national administration, legal and judicial affairs, economic affairs, energy, public health and environment and social affairs. Among the committee members are such notable figures as Chief Advisor to the NCPO, General Prawit Wongsuwan, Acting Vice President of the National Legislative Assembly, Surachai Liengbunlerchai, former Army Chief General Anupong Paujinda, former Senate Speaker Michai Ruchupan, former Governor of the Bank of Thailand Mom Ratchawong Pridiyathorn Tewakul, and former Deputy Prime Minister Somkit Jatusipitak. The NCPO also ordered the establishment of a local selection committee in each province in order to have the NRC members who come from every corner of the country. The Election Commission has further outlined the requirements that the National Reform Council candidates need to meet in order to be selected. The EC said that those barred from being nominated for seats in the council include individuals who were removed from public service for being corrupt or incompetent, disqualified from elections, trialed for unusual wealth cases, or involved in illicit activities. Candidates who are selected for the NRC must be also a national-born citizen of Thailand and at least 35 years old. The NRC is responsible for conducting studies on reform concepts and outlining national reforms. Once the reforms are proposed, the National Legislative Assembly and the National Council for Peace and Order will deliberate them before possibly adopting them for use. The Council will also review the draft of an upcoming permanent constitution. The EC has said that it is currently tasked with assisting the selection process for members of the NRC nationwide. The Permanent Secretary for Interior Ministry says the selection of the National Reform Council members will be prudent and free of lobbying. In his capacity as Acting Interior Minister, Permanent Secretary for Interior Wibun Sangwanpong gave a strong assurance to the public that the NRC selection process will be conducted transparently and without bias or favoritism, adding that he had ordered all 76 provincial governors and responsible committee to thoroughly check the qualifications of each candidate before forwarding the list to the NCPO. The National Reform Council is to consist of 250 members who will be appointed by His Majesty the King upon the advice of the NCPO. The King will then appoint one member of the National Reform Council as its president and no more than two as its vice presidents upon the resolution of the National Reform Council. Now, members of the council will be tasked with giving suggestions and guidelines for national reform in various areas to the National Legislative Assembly, the Cabinet, the NCPO, the Constitution Drafting Committee and other relevant agencies. They will also be granted the power to approve of the new permanent constitution, which includes an election system with effective mechanisms to prevent fraud and also corruption. The National Council for Peace and Order is taking steps to put an end to divisions at every level in the Thai society, from members of administrative bodies to the general public. Kun Niranut Traijakwanit has a story.
Head of the NCPO, General Prayut Chan-o-cha, denied that the NCPO was employing populist measures, saying it only wanted to solve the country's urgent problems in response to the complaints and the needs of the people. General Prayut cited the reform of people as most important, as people could be divided into different groups, sides, religions, and levels of quality of life. Each person and each group has different values and attitudes. If education cannot produce well-informed people with integrity, the people coming out of schools will not be able to handle threats, either traditional or non-traditional, or keep up with global changes. He said that conflicts brought about by selfishness, dishonesty, and divisions would make Thailand a drawback country. So everyone should put a lot of thoughts into this matter, rather than thinking of their personal interests. General Prayut said that everyone has his or her good side and bad side. The question is how to bring out the good side. In this connection, good laws are needed, and sometimes people must help warn each other and not support or cooperate with what is known to create conflicts and divisions. And if laws are enforced without discrimination, with officials operating efficiently and the judicial process functioning with clarity and without divisions and prejudice, everyone will be better off. People need a reliable system accepted by everybody. This is what the NCPO wants people to aim for, be they members of the general public or those agencies involved in a judicial system. He called on the people to join forces in seeking appropriate measures, as Thailand needs to be democratic in its own way, with the use of people's wisdom to solve these problems and prevent them from repeating the same mistakes in the future. General Prayut pointed out that he wanted everyone to distinguish the faults of a person or group of persons who are to be dealt with the normal through the judicial system. As for the nation, it needs to continue to move forward. He said he did not mean to help any particular side or to solve problems for the advantage of any specific individual. Niranutrai Jakwanit reporting.
The Ministry of Public Health has issued 4 announcements in the Government Gazette that are aimed at preventing any spread of Ebola in Thailand. Ministry Permanent Secretary Dr. Narong Sahamethapat explained that the 4 announcements included the announcement making Ebola a hazardous disease, that any patient with Ebola must lodge a report to police, that Ebola is a contagious disease, and the announcement that Ebola source countries constituted risky areas. The 4 announcements have already taken effect after they were listed on the Government Gazette. According to Dr. Narong, the initiative will allow for better screening of those infected, as well as better curbing of the deadly disease in the event of detection. Health officials have kept an eye on 79 foreigners who arrived from Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, and Nigeria for the virus. So far, there have been no reports of any suspicious symptoms or any signs of any of them harboring the disease. The National Council for Peace and Order projected that the economy would expand by 4% in the latter half of the year. According to NCPO, the improved growth prospect was due to improvements in consumer confidence and business sector confidence. The accelerated growth in the second half would allow the whole year GDP growth to reach 2%. The Council also instructed related agencies to ensure the smooth coexistence of the tourism industry and demands of internal security. More public relations aimed at tourists will be made and security measures for foreign visitors will be improved. The Council also approved 15 draft laws, including one aimed at tightening control over surrogacy. The draft bill is aimed at deterring the commercialization of surrogacy and protecting children born via surrogacy. The Department of Business Development, or DBD, reports this year's highest number of business registrations in July at nearly 5,600, although the figure is still a drop from July last year by 13%. DBD Director General Pongpan Jiawiriyapan revealed that the department received 5,592 requests to register new businesses in July, the largest number recorded since the beginning of the year. It was a rise of 8% from June, and the total registered capital was 17 billion baht. However, when compared to the same month of last year, the July number of registrations still showed a contraction of 13%. Ms. Pongpan pointed out that a major reason for the registration slump was that the authorities had become more stringent on the opening of new lottery businesses. Only 27 lottery businesses were registered this July, as opposed to 272 last year. The registration of broadcasting businesses also faced a sharp drop, with the number decreasing from 614 in July 2013 to only 17 this year. Ms. Pongpan gave assurances that the business registration number will be higher in the latter half of the year than the first half, judging from such positive factors as the Healthy Consumer Confidence Index, the approaching formation of a new government, and the recovery in public investment. She was confident there will be as many as 60,000 to 65,000 business registrations through the entire year. Thai Airways Flight 476, a Boeing 747, was obliged to make an emergency landing at Ngurah Rai International Airport, that is in Bali, Indonesia, after cracks were discovered in the window of the cockpit. The problem caused decreased pressure on board, said an official in Bali. The plane took off from Sydney, Australia, with 273 passengers and 21 crew members on board. The plane's pilot decided on an emergency landing after the cracked window was discovered at 4:52 p.m. over Bali. No injuries were reported before passengers resumed their flight to Bangkok on another aircraft. Holders of Chinese and Chinese Taipei passports will be exempted from paying visa fees when visiting Thailand for the purpose of tourism. Kun Sotchirn Lim Gring Grai has more.
Tourism Authority of Thailand, or TAT, the short-term waiver from 9th August to 8th November 2014 has been passed by the National Council of Peace and Order, or NCPO, as part of a package of measures to rapidly revive Thai tourism in the second half of 2014. The exemption will apply only to visitors coming to Thailand for tourism and submitting their tourist visa applications at Thai diplomatic missions or via the visa on arrival desks at the international checkpoints. Only a tourist visa is applicable to this measure. Visitors who apply for other categories of visa, such as transit visa or non-immigrant visa, still have to pay for the visa fee as normal. TAT Governor Thawatchai Aranyik said Thailand and China have very close relations and have much in common in terms of food, cultural and ethnic relationships, with many Thai prominent businessmen and political families having roots in China. Chinese visitors were selected for the exemption as part of the commemorative activities marking the 40th anniversary of Thailand-China diplomatic relations. Moreover, this measure is also to help the Thai private sector and the many small and medium-sized enterprises to recover. From both mainland China and Chinese Taipei, Thailand is considered a short-haul and value-for-money destination, with good airline connections and an excellent range of accommodation and tour products for people of all age groups. The kingdom is well known for its long-standing tradition of friendliness and hospitality. Bangkok also has a very large and bustling Chinatown area, where Chinese visitors can regularly be seen shopping for herbal medicines. This is Sotchirn Lim Gring Grai reporting.
Following the deadly collapse of a condominium building in Pathum Thani, some of the individuals held accountable by the police have reported themselves and have been charged with negligence. According to the Provincial Police Region 1, arrest warrants have been issued against a total of 7 people who are allegedly responsible for the recent collapse of an unfinished structure of U Place condominium in Pathum Thani's Klong Luang district. So far, 4 of the wanted individuals have surrendered themselves to the police. They have been charged with recklessness leading to the deaths and injuries, as well as violation of the Building Control Act 1979. Among the 4 are Mr. Saksit Intong, Chief Engineer, and Miss Pensi Kiti Paisanon, the building owner. Based on the police interrogation, Mr. Saksit claimed he was on vacation over the past long weekend and the contractor proceeded with the concrete work without his knowledge. Meanwhile, Miss Pensi voiced regret over the tragic accident and said she was willing to compensate all the victims. Meanwhile, rescue workers have found the 9th body under the rubble. The Fisheries Department has reported that its measure banning fishing activities for 2 months in parts of the Gulf of Thailand has yielded great benefit to fishermen whose catch rate have increased significantly. Department Director General Niwat Suthi-Michaikul spoke of the measure to ban fishing in a stretch of the Gulf that included the seas of Prachuap Khiri Khan, Phetchaburi, Samut Songkhram, Samut Sakhon, Samut Prakan, Chhat Cheong Sao, Chonburi and Bangkok. The stretch was determined to be the major spawning site of numerous marine species. The fisheries ban was in effect from June 1st to July 31st. The 2-month ban has already begun to pay off. Fishermen are now making an average catch of 18 kilograms per hour, compared to the usual rate of 13 kilograms an hour before the ban took effect. Currently, around 10,000 mackerels are being caught per day. This compared very favorably to the 2,000 mackerels caught per day before the closure of the Gulf. The size of the fish has also increased. According to Mr. Niwat, other marine catches have also increased in quantity and in size. The Royal Irrigation Department, or RID, has called a meeting with representatives from the machinery operation centres to follow up on the readiness of machinery and equipment to be used in flood prevention efforts. At the meeting between Deputy Director General for Administration of the RID, Sub-Lieutenant Paijain Maksuwan, and executives from the Machinery Operations Centres 1 to 7, the discussion was focused on preparations being made against potential flooding in the country this rainy season, particularly in terms of necessary machinery and equipment. The attending officials were briefed on the conditions of more than 1,000 such devices to ensure their readiness for use. Sub-Lieutenant Paijain said even though this year's precipitation is forecast to be lower than usual, the RID is working hard to brace the country against flooding. He elaborated that the department has laid down 2 operational guidelines consisting of flood prevention, in which waterways are dredged to increase drainage capacity, and flood mitigation through the installation of water pumps, especially in areas faced with chronic flooding. The Deputy Director General affirmed that the RID's flood prevention apparatus is fully capable of protecting the country from severe inundation, as well as providing help for residents in flood-stricken areas. The Stock Exchange of Thailand, or SCT index, yesterday closed positive at 1,544.55 points. Thailand's SET index surged 24.24 points or 1.59% on turnover of 56.15 billion baht. Most sectors shot up, with the energy and utility sector leading by a number of points gained, that is at 536.54 points or 2.59%. The blue chip SET 50 index also closed positive at 1,038.63 points. That's a jump of 20.16 points or 1.98%, accounting for 31.68 billion baht. The MAI index also closed positive at 604.41 points, rising 5.01 points or 0.84%, accounting for 3.87 billion baht. And that's it for Thailand Moves Forward. Coming up next, we have the international news for you. And here's a look at the exchange rates and the commodity prices. Welcome back. You're watching Newsline. Israel and Hamas have agreed to extend the ceasefire in Gaza for a further 5 days, a Palestinian negotiator said on Wednesday. A 3-day ceasefire already in place was due to end at early this morning, Thailand's time. But after indirect talks in Cairo, Egypt, between the two sides, a longer truce was agreed. Palestinian negotiator Azam Ahmed said during the negotiations that Palestinian and Israeli negotiators had agreed on most points, but some outstanding issues remained. As the deadline for the original ceasefire neared, Israel moved forces closer to Gaza and called up additional reservist troops. Police said at least 2 rockets fired from the Gaza Strip also struck Israel yesterday, moments before the 3-day truce was set to expire. Activists and government officials gathered in Mexico City yesterday for the 152 extraordinary period of sessions by the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights for a damning report card on the state of human rights in the violence-ravaged Central American nation of Honduras. On a per capita basis, the tiny country of Honduras outpaces every other nation in homicides, with 79 murders per 100,000 people last year, according to the United Nations. Tackling a cycle of poverty, crime and violence in Honduras was high on the agenda at the Mexico City conference, with Commissioner for the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, Felipe Gonzalez, telling activists and officials that policies to address the country's problems have been piecemeal. Gang-related killings have surged in Honduras since Mexico's drug cartels expanded into Central Americas, enlisting local street gangs and using the country's Caribbean coast to transport South American cocaine to the U.S. More than a foot of rain hit parts of New York's Long Island on Wednesday, enough to set a preliminary state record, triggering flash floods and swamping cars on major roads that were turned into rivers during the morning rush hour. Much of the rain fell during a particularly intense 2-hour burst while commuters were traveling to work. A total of 13.2 inches of rain was measured at MacArthur Airport in Islip. That is believed to be the most to have ever fallen in an area of New York during a 24-hour period, said Christopher Vaccaro, spokesperson for the National Weather Service. The standing record of 11.6 inches was set in August 2011 near Tannersville in the Hudson Valley during Tropical Storm Irene. The stormy weather contributed to at least one fatality when a tractor-trailer and a Jeep collided on the Long Island Expressway, killing the Jeep's driver at about 5 a.m. during heavy rains, according to the Suffolk County Highway Patrol. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of Newsline. If you do have any suggestions, please write to us. The email is nbtnewsline.nbt@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook by simply typing in NNT, and you'll find out more about Newsline and our news. Or have a look at our website, thainews.prd.go.th/newseng. We say goodbye with an ancient tomb that has recently been unearthed in Greece. The discovery found 2 sphinxes dating back to 300 BC. I'm Cholapansan Rula. Thank you very much for joining us. Sawasdee ka.